Hi there. Recently had an Ask Me Anything post across in the fan club on Facebook, and I got sent loads of questions. Thank you to everybody who wrote me a question. So without any further ado, I'll try and answer them all for you. Okay, question 1 from James Minty Fisher. Where do you get the inspiration for your characters from? All the characters are formed organically. It's like with any writer. Writers observe a lot. They observe a lot of human behavior. They observe everything around them, and for me, anyway, the characters just form naturally. The main characters in Safe Haven, Mike, Emma, Sammy, and Jake. That family was around for a long time. They were part of another story I was going to write when I was in my 20s, and they have kind of been fermenting the longest, if you like. But I don't get inspiration specifically. They just kind of form. They just come to me. And obviously, as the story develops, the characters develop as well. I tend to do a lot of character development through the dialogue. And that's what forms the basis of their characters. Question 2, Faye Haskins. Do you have a vacation schedule after all this hard work? Is there no slowing you down right now? Well, I don't have a vacation schedule. I'm hoping at some point next year, the early part of next year, I can take a little break. But it's pretty relentless at the moment. We've got the end of everything 4 coming out at the end of this month, 5 next month, 6 the month after that, and then Safe Haven 6th in October. And I don't know. I mean, I've got quite a lot of ideas still. I don't know what's going to come after that at the moment. But yeah, we've spoken about it, and we're hoping for early-ish next year, just to take a little break for a week or so, just something quiet. Claire O'Neill. Question, are you ever tempted to put yourself as a character in one of your books? Good God, no. It would be disastrous. No, I think there's enough carnage in my books, and enough questionable characters without putting me in there as well. Shallon, hi Thomas. Have you always been interested in zombies, and if not, what gave you your inspiration? Well, I've always loved horror right from a very young age, and you know, I saw like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, all that kind of thing. I've always liked zombies, but I've always seen them as part of the not specifically zombies. I've always loved horror in general, but when it came to reading, from horror, I got into post-apocalyptic horror, and probably, you know, that type of thing, including zombies, but not just limited to them, caught my interest. I mean, I'm a big fan of post-apocalyptic fiction in general, but for me, when I started writing Safe Haven, zombies were the perfect fit. So I've always had an interest in them. Yeah. Joanne Whaley. I apologise if I've got that wrong. I'd love to know your top 5 or 10 movies. Mine's a very mixed bunch. I wonder if you take ideas from your favourite characters in them and incorporate them into any of your books. Well, I love film. I really do. You got me thinking about my favourite movies. It's very difficult. Mine's a real mixed bag as well. Some of them are classics. Some of them, they're just, you know, I just really love them. As far as using the characters from them, not really. My characters, they all, like I say, they all develop pretty organically, and you know, saying that, subconsciously there might be something that I've seen in a movie that I've included in one of my characters without even realising it, and that goes the same. You know, I could see somebody on the street, and there could be something from that ends up being a characteristic of one of my characters. It's hard to say, but I never deliberately attribute something that I've seen in a film to one of the characters I write. As far as my favourite 5 or 10 films ago, I had to think about this. I mean, I love making lists, so I wrote it down, and it does change all the time. So in no particular order, we've got Seven Samurai, the Akira Kurosawa film, which is just wonderful. Shawshank Redemption, obviously Stephen King's story. Frank Darabont is just amazing. The Grapes of Wrath. I love Henry Fonda, big Henry Fonda fan, and I love that film. The Dark Knight trilogy. Christopher Nolan did something incredible with that, and you know, the acting, the script, the music, everything about it. I mean, the Hans Zimmer music was absolutely phenomenal for that. Loved everything about that trilogy. Toss up between Godfather and Godfather Part 2. I really love those films. Amazing cast, amazing story. Psycho. That film is pure genius as far as I'm concerned. Really, really powerful. Still find it very tense, very exciting even now. Once Upon a Time in the West. I just think that's an incredible film. It's long. It's easy for some people, if they're not into that genre, to lose interest pretty quickly. But I absolutely loved it. Very, very clever film. And Office Space. Because I've worked in so many places where that stuff goes on, I just cannot help but laugh all the time. When no matter how many times I've seen that film, I love everything about it. I love the lead, Ron Livingston's absolutely brilliant in that, and it's you know, you're never going to see it in a top 100 films of all time poll, but it is just one of my favourite films, and I absolutely love it. Second question, what books sparked your interest in horror or films? I remember reading Rats by James Herbert when I was about 11, and I was hooked ever since. Well, I started reading quite late. I mean, it was Stephen King and James Herbert I actually got into, and I absolutely loved the Rats trilogy. That was phenomenal. But I love most of the things I read by James Herbert, and I love Stephen King, and I couldn't get enough of it. And from there, obviously, I read The Stand, and that's what got me interested in post-apocalyptic fiction. And then I went on to read things like Swan Song by Robert McCammon, Alas Babylon by Pat Frank, Earth Abides, George Stewart, all the classics. But probably James Herbert and Stephen King were the main ones, and probably Rats and The Stand were the ones that really stood out for me. Donna Franklin Paulston, do ideas running through your head keep you up at night sometimes? They used to. When I was working full time, and I got an idea for something, even though I was in work the next morning, I used to get up at sometimes ridiculous times, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, to get the ideas jotted down, and sometimes I just stay right up to the point that I was due to get up. Now, though, I've created a fairly well, it's not rigid, but I know how best I work now, and I look at writing 4,000 words a day, and even when I know that I've got more inside me, I like to cut off at that. So, when I start the next day, I can rattle it all off, the ideas that were kind of fermenting overnight. Sheila Shed, are there any projects on the horizon unrelated to Safe Haven or the End of Everything universes? Yes, there are. Because this year's been crazy. I mean, I've had a book a month out since February, and I'm pretty much doing a book a month for most of the rest of the year at the moment. I haven't really had time to develop the other ideas, but I have got quite a lot of ideas. So one thing at a time. I'll work my way through these first. Really enjoying what I'm doing with the End of Everything and Safe Haven, but I have got plenty of other ideas to work on as well. Yolanda Butler, do you all plan to come to the other side of the pond for a holiday? We would love to. Yeah, I mean, we've often spoken. I mean, there's loads of places in America we want to see. And yeah, it's something we've talked about and thought about an awful lot. I mean, with my workload at the moment and for the foreseeable future, we can't really think about holidays. I've got these ideas in my head, which it's very important that while they're fresh and while I'm I'm so immersed in my writing that I get them all down on, well, not paper, but get them down on the screen. But yes, at some stage we'd love to we'd love to travel to the US. Harold Lowry, how do you think the zombie apocalypse would differ between, let's say, the UK and the US? Well, obviously the guns thing is a big difference. The guns are legal over in the US. They're not over here, and there's much more access to them in the US, whereas there aren't over here. But ultimately, it's what I write about in Safe Haven, The End of Everything. It's all to do with people's headspace rather than what weapons are at their disposal. If you're unarmed and you're trapped in a room with somebody who's trying to kill a member of your family, it doesn't matter whether you're American, English, Russian, French, German, you are going to do everything you possibly can to defend your family. Unless you don't like them. You'll probably just let whoever it is have a go at them. But no, I mean, it's exactly the same principle. It doesn't matter what weapons are at your disposal. You'll do whatever it takes. And that's what Safe Haven and that's what The End of Everything are about. And I think that's why a lot of people on the other side of the pond like the story, because, you know, it doesn't matter what weapons there are. It's that headspace. You will do whatever it takes to look after the ones you love. You'll do whatever it takes to do the right thing. It doesn't matter what you have at your disposal. And yeah, the stories will vary a little bit depending, you know, what somebody has. You know, I mean, if somebody's you know, got a javelin to defend themselves, or if somebody's got a gun to defend themselves, the way the story's told may vary a little bit. But it's essentially about what's inside, what you do, what you're like as a person. And I don't think there's a huge amount of difference between anybody all over the world when it comes to what they do for their families and what they do for their loved ones. So yes, there will be aspects that are different, but ultimately there'll be more aspects that are the same. It's the drive that is what governs us, not what's at our disposal. Marlene Hanson, do you have an interest to write in another genre, i.e. romance, non-fiction, historical, pet grooming, etc.? I mean, I've done some stuff in other genres. I've got some ideas that have certainly started. I started writing a thriller a while back, and I'd like to get back to that at some stage. I don't rule anything out. For me, what's important is the story more than anything, and I've got to have an interest in the story and the characters, and I've got to go along with the flow of the story. So I wouldn't rule any genre out. You know, I've just got to enjoy writing it. So very possibly, although a pet grooming one, I'd probably leave that to Tina. Haley Parks, have you written any books that you've decided not to publish, and why? Good question. I've written a book that hasn't been published yet. It will be at some stage, and I'm simply sitting on that because I need to write the sequel before I release the first one. Otherwise, you know, it's. I don't want to tell you too much about it, but it's a post-apocalyptic, and it's a very different slant. And I'll feel happier in my head knowing that the second one's in the bag before I release the first one. So I wrote this the beginning of the year, and it's quite a weighty one, and I will be bringing it out, but I need to bring out. I need to write the sequel first. Excuse me. Just need to take a coffee. Okay, Rosanna Landeros, you probably have this question asked before. When you were younger, did you know you would be a horror writer, even zombie writer? A good one at that. Well, thank you, Rosanna. No, when I was younger, I actually wanted to be a music journalist. I wrote a fanzine about progressive rock, which was my my preferred form of music, and that was all I wanted to do. It was only later on in life, well, in my 20s, I had an idea for a play, which is where Mike and Emma originally came from. But it was only later on in life that I started writing fiction. And when I was younger, I never thought for a second that I'd be a horror author. Carrier Morgan, where do your names for characters come from? Names have such meaning to me. Well, the names they just kind of come to me. I try and use names that seem fitting to the character, but I don't have any. There's no kind of divine inspiration pointing me towards a particular name. It just seems appropriate for the character. So I don't really, I'm trying to think how I actually choose the names. They just seem to form. So yeah, you never know what name might appear in one of my books. Neither do I. Kelly Cross, do you have a playlist of music you listen to while writing, or do you prefer peace and quiet? Well, no, I constantly listen to music. I can't listen to anything with lyrics. I can't listen to vocalists or anything like that. I need to listen to like instrumental music. I mean, it does vary a bit, but my go-to stuff, there's a group called Godspeed You Black Emperor, a Canadian band, and they're just, they are perfect for what I write, and I can just get lost in their music completely. Very, very unusual band, and if you see live footage of them on YouTube, they just completely immerse themselves in what they do. They hardly even look at the audience a lot of the time. They just look at each other, look at their instruments. Everything about it is about the music, and I love that. I love the music they produce. I love the feel of the music, and when I'm writing, I tend to listen to them a lot, and it's just absolutely perfect for the type of stuff that I write. Sue Jackson, where on earth do you get your ideas for the gory stuff? Don't want to post any spoilers, but you'll know what I mean when I mention secateurs. Well, once again, it's all about the characters for me. There are some pretty gruesome characters in the books, and none of the stuff in there is gratuitous. It's to do with how that person is, how their character is formed in my mind, how they think. I don't make decisions for them. They make decisions for themselves. I do my best to put myself into the character's boots, and whether they have, psychological issues, whether, they have deep-seated fears, anything like that, I try to respond in a way that I think they would respond. And certainly with what you mentioned, that particular character, he had more than a few issues, and so when he saw things, they were in a completely different light to how others would see them, and what was a tool to somebody else for doing some gardening, he didn't quite see like that. He kind of envisioned it as something different. Okay, final question from Michelle Sewell. Do you have a planned ending for both of your series? No, I don't. The way things are going at the moment, the characters are developing all the time. Some of them aren't with us any longer, sadly. But I'm really pleased with the way the characters and the stories are developing, and I really don't have a planned end at the moment. I mean, at some stage I might decide that an event takes place that, you know, will actually put a full stop after the book for once and for all. But right now I can't see it. So as it stands at the moment, both The End of Everything and Safe Haven are going to be going for some time. And that brings us to the end of the questions. So once again, I want to thank everybody for posing a question. Thank you to everybody across in the fan club for all your incredible support, as usual. If you like my books and you're not a member of the fan club, hop across to Facebook and join up. It's a lovely group, really good bunch of people. They'll always make you feel welcome. And if you've not already subscribed to the YouTube page, if you could like this video and subscribe, that would be fantastic as well. To stay in touch with everything I'm doing, if you go across to ChristopherArtinian.com, you can sign up to the newsletter. You can hear about all the new releases. There are another 4 at least this year. And who knows, there might be something else after that too. We've also got audiobooks coming out this year. My friend Kim Bretton is going back into the studio within the next week or so to start recording The End of Everything Book 2. We've already had 2 audiobook releases this year, so there's lots going on all the time, so please do stay up to date. But thank you very much for watching, and I dare say I'll speak to you again very soon. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.